Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Welcome to Spirit of Islam. I am your host Ashraf Zaghloul, and today inshallah we'll talk about the violence in Iraq. I would like to introduce my guests, Shahid Akhtar and Huda Hussein. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam.
I was reading an article in Time magazine a little while ago, and it had the article about the violence in Iraq, and it posed this question: does Shia and Sunni hate each other? Or why does Shia and Sunni hate each other? I'd like to start with you, Shahid, and tell me, do you really feel they hate each other, or do we hate each other?
I guess you have to think about how the question is asked. Sometimes the question is asked in such a rhetorical way that you almost get an answer, that this is what the questioner wants you to answer, that they do hate each other, so that it can become a perpetual reality on the ground. Just before getting into whether Shia Sunni quote-unquote hate each other, let me just give a brief so our viewers understand where the context is coming from, a brief history of Shia and Sunni divide or difference. It started immediately after the Prophet's death, when one group of companions or Sahaba, they thought that we should select someone who can carry on the job, and purely based on merit, we should have a democratic selection of a successor to the Prophet. The other group said, no, the succession of leadership of the Islamic Ummah should remain within the family, Ahl Bayt, the household of the Prophet. That is which gave rise to begin with the difference. And at that time, the first caliph was actually not from Ahl Bayt, it was Abu Bakr. So he, and there were three other caliphs before Ali could become the fourth caliph. There was violence. Ali was also assassinated. His son, Imam Hussein, who is regarded as the third Imam among Shias, he then refused to recognize the caliph who was in place, who was an arch enemy of Ali's Muawiyah's son, Yazid. Now, Imam Hussein and Yazid, when Imam Hussein refused to pay allegiance to Yazid, there was a fight. The companions of Hussein, with 72 people, fought an army of 5,000.
Yes.
They were massacred. And very tragic things took place. Hussein's head was taken on a spear and paid tribute to Yazid. That is when the split and the animosity and the hostility took place. But immediately we have to understand this. It happened in the beginning, there was violence in the beginning, but after that, for the longest period of time, Shias and Sunnis lived in long peaceful times where the conflict was not in terms of violence. There was political differences, there remain political differences, no doubt. Some political differences, because, for example, the Shias' belief in imams, they did come into the religious practices, but that did not mean that the two populations of Sunnis and Shias would be at each other's throat. What happened, now jumping to the modern times, what has happened recently in today's time, post 9/11, Shia and Sunni reality is very different. These are the same two groups who, under the brutal dictatorship of Saddam Hussein, it was the Shias of Iraq who fought Shias of Iran during the Iran-Iraq war. There was not Shia versus Sunni. Shias were oppressed, but they were oppressed by a secular government.
Too. I would say
and Sunnis were
all people are oppressed, no one group.
But Sunnis and Shias were not fighting as population with each other. Shias and Sunnis, but mostly since we're talking about Shias and Sunnis, Shias were oppressed by a dictator who happened to be Sunni. And regardless, even if he had been a Shia, he was a secular person. So with that, what happened that after 2003, when the invasion of Iraq took place, we come to a situation where the rivalries between the oppressed and the oppressors after the post-Ba'athist area in the interest of the agenda of the occupier,
Yeah.
they decided to give it a color of sectarian violence.
Yes.
From a political violence, it became sectarian violence. To draw attention away from what was actually going on, and in terms of rather than acknowledging the failure of giving
Occupation and
giving Iraqis peace and democracy and prosperity and light and power and water.
Yeah.
When that did not take place, they thought that how can we divert, deflect attention from this?
Yeah.
And this happened where Shia versus Sunni violence became so real that once the Askariya mosque was bombed, then Al-Qaeda and people who were Al-Qaeda's, who were playing the same agenda, that they wanted that attention to be diverted. It became almost an irreversible way. Then Shias did stand up and they did start to attack Sunnis. There's no doubt about that. But even with all that, the conflict still remains political.
Yes.
It is not, Iran is not a model for Sistani, although he was born and raised in Iran. They still want, instead of ruling by the clergy, they want a democracy. The democracy says one person, one vote. They happen to be majority. They will